From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Uncovering history.
Guaranteed, if you look long enough, you're gonna find a little child's keepsake.
We travel along with Farm Journal's Chris Bennett as he uncovers some tiny windows to the past. Wheat's wild ride, what prices mean for producers here at home and countries around the world. As gas prices make history, the White House announces new sanctions against Russia.
We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy.
What the impact will be now and in the future for farmers right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The U.S. is hitting a milestone, but not one that most Americans will appreciate. Gas prices now the most expensive in the country's history. AAA is reporting the national average now stands at $4.17, breaking the previous record of $4.11. That record had stood since July of 2008. The news coming as President Biden announced the U.S. was banning imports of Russian oil, natural gas, and coal. Right now, the U.S. imports about 100,000 barrels a day from Russia. That's only about 5% of the country's total crude exports. Most of what Russia sends to the U.S. is unfinished oils or heavy oil that refiners use for blending purposes. Now, refiners may be able to find substitutes for heavy oil from places like Mexico, Ecuador, and Colombia. But the president warns the Russia ban would come at a cost to American drivers.
Today, we remain united. We remain united in our purpose to keep pressure mounting on Putin and his war machine. This is a step that we're taking to inflict further pain on Putin, but there will be cost as well here in the United States. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home.
Unlike the U.S., Europe is heavily reliant on energy imports from Russia. The European Commission has a plan to replace over 70% of Russian gas imports this year, but right now, there is not EU consensus on rejecting Russian oil imports, and it appears those higher gas prices are here to stay for a while.
Short term, I mean, it's a real boost for agricultural commodities because as long as crude oil is headed up, none of these markets are going to top. And this is a big deal. We were using about 600,000 barrels a day from Russia. And so that's why you see crude up big again today. And my next target's 137, and beyond that, we could get as high as 150 and put in all-time new highs. So that is possible. And what it's doing to the economy, I think longer term, it's going to create quite a pinch on people and ultimately a recession.
One energy expert predicting $5 a gallon gas as a nationwide average is a possibility. And a growing number of international companies are suspending operations with Russia. You see them there on your screen. They include Apple, Disney, and Ford. Exxon announcing it would quit its last Russian project, while Boeing has said it is suspending major operations in Moscow. Other global energy companies, including BP and Shell, have also distanced themselves, and McDonald's, the latest, announcing it would temporarily close 850 restaurants in Russia. And we're continuing to watch the wild swings in the wheat market caused by the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, with wheat in Chicago trading at the highest price ever on Monday, followed Tuesday by a drop of more than $1 on the March contract. In July, trading limit down. Yahoo Finance reporting on this, talking with one market watcher who studies the impact increased food staple commodities like wheat have had throughout history, saying, quote, "It is a biblical event when you run low on wheat stocks. You won't see a global food shortage. Unfortunately, what you're going to see globally is that billions of people might not be able to afford to buy the food," end quote. And while he doesn't believe the world will run out of wheat, he says prices could continue to rise and vulnerable populations will be most impacted, something Chandler Gould of the National Association of Wheat Growers agrees with.
Well, I think one of the positive things, if there really is one in this situation that we can fall back on, is that we ended last year with a pretty decent moderate world stock of wheat just in general. So can we handle a supply disruption from a major exporting country like Ukraine? Yes, but really who's going to be hit the hardest are the developing countries. So Ukraine wheat is predominantly going to, Egypt, Turkey, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Philippines. And so it's those developing countries and some of the countries in Africa that are very dependent on that lower cost wheat than the high quality wheat that we produce here in the United States.
And here's a closer look at the places around the world impacted by the conflict. African countries importing ag products worth $4 billion from Russia in 2020. About 90% of that was wheat. Ukraine is Indonesia's second largest wheat supplier last year. It provided 26% of wheat consumed. Ukraine and Russia combined account for 75% of global sunflower oil exports. That accounts for 10% of all cooking oils. And Ukraine also supplies the EU with just under 60% of its corn and nearly half of a key component in the grains needed to feed livestock. Now, Russia provides the EU with 40% of its natural gas needs. It's also a major supplier of fertilizer, wheat, and other staples to those countries. And we're continuing to track this. Wildfires are growing in the Florida Panhandle. The state's Forest Service reporting the Chipola complex now involves 3 fires and has grown to more than 29,000 acres. Officials say the fires are being fanned by dry, windy weather. It says lighter winds and the possibility of rain isn't enough to decrease the wildfire threat anytime soon. Spring does them again for another 11 days, which means winter still has time to make a final push across the country, and that's just what it's doing. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik has an update on some changes to the jet stream. Matt.
That's right, Clinton. We're taking a look at kind of a dig in that jet stream out to the west, and that's going to keep things very active as we head through the rest of this week and even into early next week, especially in the eastern part of the country. Chilly air coming into the northern Rockies while it stays very warm in the south and east. But as this moves towards the east, this dip in the jet stream kind of digging along through the center of the country, that colder air is going to filter in to the upper Midwest and eventually the Great Lakes and into the east. As that happens, chances for snow come along with it, and then we get another ridge of mild air building back to the west. So along with these systems, the first one bringing some snow right through the Plain States, 6 to 12 inches there for parts of Nebraska, Kansas, even into Iowa and Missouri, 3 to 6 up into parts of Illinois and Michigan, and again, more out there in the Rockies as well. We're going to see another system that will bring snow to the east, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But look at Des Moines. Snow tomorrow, temperatures on average 15 to 20 degrees below where they should be for this time of the year. It's going to be a cold stretch of weather there in Des Moines, Iowa over the next couple of days with a few days of sunshine as well. And a sure sign that spring is just around the corner. Azaleas are starting to bloom. LSU Ag Center sharing this photo of the flowers in Baton Rouge. Absolutely beautiful to see, and more where that came from. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Wild swings in a down day for grains sent livestock markets higher. We'll discuss those cattle market maneuvers coming up next. And later, the battle against weeds starts by identifying your foe. A lesson from the field for Weed Wednesday. And have you checked this out yet? Sunday, brackets will open in the 2022 Bracket Busters Challenge presented by Case IH. Farmers will take on farmers for a chance at the $1,000 top prize. Make sure to check out agweb.com/bracketbusters for details.
Ag Day is brought to you by Authority Supreme Herbicide from FMC. Learn more at ag.fmc.com.
Dwayne Bussey, Bull Marketing, our guest today. Dwayne, let's talk about what's going on in the cattle market. Obviously, pressure from the grains spilling over into some of the cattle situation. We've also got dryness out west, and both of those things are competing.
You're exactly right. A lot in play right now in the cattle market. The higher priced corn this last week really finally kind of hurt the feeders a little bit, but they felt a little high priced all winter long to me when you think of the high priced corn. But cash feeders have probably dropped about $10 in the last week to 10 days with the high priced corn, rightfully so. Cattle, the fat cattle market has actually dipped back as well too, probably back to the cattle on feed report that showed a record amount of cattle on feed. But because of that dryness you mentioned, Clinton, in the plains, I think the steers and heifers came off of some of those wheat fields earlier this year, therefore a bearish cattle on feed report. Longer term, I think our numbers are tight enough that we'll see higher prices in cattle moving forward. Box beef prices have also dipped just a little bit, but I think they'll find some support here too and grind higher, because packers have sure kept they've kept slaughter up very high. And if they're killing them fast, that means they see higher prices in the future.
You know, it is kind of interesting as the world seems to come out of this pandemic and we start to get people back into restaurants, and obviously the spring and summer grilling season just around the corner. It feels like demand is going to be there for beef.
I think so. Absolutely. You know, maybe it's not your prime cuts anymore. Maybe it'll be hamburgers, but people want to get out. They want to get together, and an old-fashioned barbecue, I think, would be high on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. Dwayne, appreciate it. Thank you for the insights as always. We'll be back with more AgDay coming up in just a minute.
For marketing advice, call Bolt Marketing, a futures and options brokerage firm. Buster's Challenge presented by Case IH. It's farmer versus farmer for a chance to win the $1,000 top prize. Head to agweb.com today to fill out your bracket. Ag Day weather is brought to you by Zoetis. Even though calves don't wait for perfect weather to arrive, you can count on Zoetis to be there. Share a picture of your newest calf and you could win a calving season survival kit. Enter now at calvingseason.com.
It's estimated drought conditions in California cost the state's ag industry more than $1 billion last year, along with more than 8,000 full and part-time jobs. That's according to new analysis led by the University of California, Merced researchers. The report identifies 395,000 acres of idled land, most of it in the Central Valley, due to drought-related water cutbacks. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here. Matt, as we look at the national forecast, temperatures pretty mild in some places, but still cold in others here in mid-March.
Oh yeah, we had a surge of warmth over the last week, and now we're starting to see that cold air invade behind a front. And that cold air in the northern Rockies and the northern tier going to be dropping farther to the south, coming through the upper Midwest and even into the Great Lakes as we head over the next couple of days behind this system. But right now, very mild. Heading into tomorrow morning, again, you're going to start to see these chillier temperatures start to expand as that kind of Arctic air moves to the south. Very chilly tomorrow morning, places like St. Louis down to Tulsa, and even in the 20s all the way down into Dallas. The only mild spot right down in the southeast with temperatures still in the 70s in Miami. And then as we head through tomorrow afternoon, still extremely warm out ahead of these systems and back in Texas, very mild across the south, but again, chillier air starting to filter in the north. And it's all because of the jet stream where we've got kind of that colder air bottled up here to the north, but starting to see that be able to come to the south. And as we head through the end of the week and into the weekend, we're talking about a couple of systems moving through, which we'll see here in just a second. Colder air following these into the Great Lakes and eventually up into the north and east as well. And then mild air starts to build in from the west as we head over the next couple of weeks. Again, still in that time frame during the year where we're seeing that battle of the warm air and the cold air. So right now, here's the big system moving into the mid-Atlantic states, bringing some rain and snow, and then a couple of systems back there in the west. And this is going to be our first one that's going to break out across the plain states as that next storm system kind of starts moving up in the southeast. Snow falling across parts of Nebraska, Iowa, and into Missouri, and eventually works its way into the Great Lakes before a second system forms and will move up the east coast as we head towards the weekend. So here's a look at the precipitation over the next couple of days. A lot of it, again, east of the Mississippi, and some higher mountain snow back there in the west and across the plains. That will be some much needed moisture. Here's a look at that snow map. 3 to 6 inches for parts of from Michigan back through the plains, 6 to 12 inch bullseye there, right along northern Kansas, southern parts of Nebraska, even into Iowa and Missouri as well. And then more, obviously, higher elevation snow back there in the southern Rockies. But then we're dealing with another storm Friday into Saturday, moving up the East Coast, likely interior portions of the Northeast, dealing with some heavier snow yet again here, and we'll track that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Scranton, Pennsylvania, snow likely, a high of 37 degrees. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a chance of showers and a high of 60 degrees. And Grant, Nebraska, periods of snow likely, a high of 23.
Battling against weeds requires due diligence. We'll start with identification coming up next. And later, glass graveyards litter farm fields across the country. Discover what's washing up between the rows today in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator, it's not just any closing wheel. Reach your yield potential. Pre-order by March 31st with coupon code AgDay for $2 shipping per wheel. Ag Day is brought to you by Authority Supreme Herbicide from FMC. Learn more at ag.fmc.com.
It's called the king of weeds, and it can be resistant to common herbicides. But before you can fight it, you have to be able to identify it. Dr. Christy Sprague of Michigan State University takes us out in the field this Weed Wednesday.
When we look at Palmer amaranth, a couple things that I usually like to look for. First of all, I like to see if there's any hair on the stem. And if we look very closely, you'll see that there is not hair on the stem. Another thing that's very characteristic about Palmer amaranth is that it has a very long petiole on the leaf. And in fact, a lot of times if you take it and fold it in half, it'll be as long or longer than the leaf. Palmer amaranth is both male and female plants. This is a male plant. And if you look at it, you'll see that it's kind of got a softer seed head, and this is where the pollen comes from. And then the pollen will flow over to the female plants, and we have a couple of female plants over here. And with the female plants, a couple things I like to look for is when you grab hold of it, it is extremely sharp. It has these bracts on it, and they're very pointed, and if you grab hold of it, you really know, so it's kind of very pricky. Then when you look down at the stem, you also see down here, again, that really longer leaf petiole. It's pretty long here. And then here where the stem and the leaves are, you'll see these bracts again, and again, they're very pointed. One thing, if you're really confused about which pigweed, a lot of times you can tell by looking at the seed capsules. The seed capsules of Palmer amaranth have all the same length sepals, and they're usually about twice as big as what the seed is.
If you like a good treasure hunt, stay tuned. Up next, a journey to the farm fields of the Mississippi Delta for some prized pieces of glass in the country. History is often lost to the turn rows and tillage of a generational farm. Only bits and pieces are left behind as small windows to the past. And nobody is better at digging those stories up than Farm Journal's Chris Bennett. He recently stopped by a couple of farms in the Mississippi Delta where lost marbles are resurfacing ahead of planting season.
If you're wondering why in the world there are marbles in farm fields, it's because the old sharecropper and old tenant houses there and sites themselves still have their glass graveyards. You can't see anything but the glass when the sun hits it at the right time.
4 or 5 sharecropper houses right up here on this point, probably dating back, I don't know, I would reckon 100 years or so.
Those spots get hit by rainwater during January, February pretty dang hard. And when that happens, it washes the water off the top of the marbles, so you get kind of an umbrella effect, and they're there to be found.
There's all kind of remembrances of history in here. Buttons, even coal they use to heat their houses. You're guaranteed, if you look long enough, that you're gonna find a little child's keepsake. Looks like a cat eye, but there it is right there. Pretty dang awesome. We're gonna pop it out. Come on, baby. There it is, right there. That's how you do it. That's what we're talking about. We're gonna go down, and you can see it right there. It's broken, but it's a pretty blue. Now this one probably hadn't been touched for, I don't know, 75 years or so. A child's toy from way back when. All right, Tim. It makes your heart pump hard. I'm telling you what, it gets your blood going. If it doesn't, it probably ain't right.
Great stuff. Thanks, Chris. And that's all of our time this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day. Have fun.